Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day for all students. Okay, so for this week we will see the measurement instrument. Okay, this is the measurement instrument. We will see there are three: CRT, NRT, and also the designing assignment lah. Okay, so first we will see the introduction to assessment lah. What is assessment? It is a process where you gather and analyze the information lah. The information from what? The information from what about the student, the effect of student when they are using your instructional lah that you already developed. Okay, so the purpose of assessment is first to guide your instructional decision, to monitor the student, and then to certify the student achievement, and also to evaluate the student lah, and also the instructional that you already developed. Okay, there are several types of assessment here. You can see, for example, like self-assessment, formative, summative, peer assessment, automatic, and also portfolio. Okay, first we see what is self-assessment. Okay, self-assessment is to see the understanding of our learner lah. How from our learning objective, does the learner understand what they need to achieve, and from the achievement we can see lah what the weakness of the learner. Okay, for self-assessment we can assess by using checklist, rubric, and also reflection journal lah. Okay, for formative assessment. Okay, for formative assessment usually it is a ongoing assessment. It is a process assessment lah. For example, like you are taking a class from week 1 until week 14, we given a ongoing assessment for you to monitor your learning process lah. So to monitor it, we can use this assessment lah. For example, like quiz, homework, and class discussion. For summative assessment, it's more on the unit, the end of the course lah, at the end of the course. And usually for summative assessment, we will assess by using the exam, final project, or a portfolio lah. And then for peer assessment, it's more toward the learner evaluate each other work lah. That mean it's more toward a group work lah. How you interact with your friend inside the class. Okay, and then for authentic assessment, it's more on the real work task, where you apply the real work knowledge in your assessment lah. For example, here you can see we can use presentation, project based learning, interview, writing sample. Okay, this one is the task you apply from the real world knowledge that you already know. We call as authentic assessment lah. For portfolio assessment is more on the collecting of student project lah. That means you have the set of it's almost familiar with the formative assessment, but portfolio is more on the large project. That means the project you start from early week until the end of the week lah. And usually for this assessment we use for subject like project management, something that require more work lah. So we give them a portfolio assessment. Okay, we finish with the assessment. Okay, then we will see the tools lah, the tools for measuring the instructional. Okay, the first one is the CRT lah, Criterion Reference Test. Okay, the Criterion Reference Test is a test that measured student performance against a specific set of criteria or standard lah. That mean you already set the certain criteria and standard to measure the student performance. Okay, for example here. We have rubric, checklist, performance based, test and quiz lah. Okay, and usually we can see here they set a criteria for examination or quiz score. To pass and fail, the student must get a grade 80% to get a grade A and above lah. Okay, and then 70 to 79 to get A minus. That is the criterion and standard that we put inside our tools, our test tool lah. Okay, and then others criterion also we can set based on what the student can do. Okay, based on the specific feedback given by the student lah. Okay, and then formative assessment is the assessment that I already explained to you lah, about the examination, quiz and something like that lah. This is this kind of assessment usually use CRT as their tools to evaluate the student lah. Okay, next we see the continuation of CRT. Okay, the purpose of using CRT is to measure a set of objective lah. That mean a standard or criterion that we already set and we want to achieve it. Okay, and then the characteristic of test when we want to, a characteristic of instructional lah when we want to use CRT. Okay, they must have a test score lah, a test score. For example here, a test score to generate a statement about behaviour that can be expect the person with that score lah. That mean you set from what you already observe, from from what we already know lah. For test, for example, test score, this person already said that 80 above is A, 70 to 90 is A minus, and usually we expect that usually this kind of mark already have proof that they expect that how many students can achieve that kind of score lah. Okay, and then success on CRT mean being able to perform specific competencies lah. That mean if the CRT test tool obtain most of the objective is achieved, that mean the instructional development that we develop is good for the student. Okay, and from the test and feedback that we already get, we can develop a new instructional strategy lah from the output that we get from the learner, and then we can determine the level of, for example here the objective is student understood for example here the objective to ensure student understand about English grammar. So from the quiz or interview that we already developed, we can see that how many student master about grammar, how many student not master, cannot achieve high objective in grammar lah. So we can determine it lah, the level of mastering of the objective. Okay, and then usually by using CRT, there are several tests that we need to follow lah. The first one is the entry test. The second one is the pre-test. Third one is post-test, and lastly practice or exercise lah. Okay, what is entry test? Okay, usually entry test is we want to measure the prerequisite skill lah. That mean the early stage skill of the student. And then it's usually conduct before the instruction process is done toward the student lah. For example, you want to check about English grammar, you must make sure the entry test, you must make sure that the student already know about English. Okay, and then pre-test, and then we do pre-test. Pre-test is to measure skill to be learned, what skill you want to teach the student. Okay, and then conduct before the instruction lah. That mean for pre-test, you want to teach about grammar, so most of the pre-test question is based on the grammar lah. Okay, and then for post-test, same as pre-test, or we can make some differences lah for the test, but the group is still about grammar, but the test is done after the pre-test is done lah. Okay, and then lastly, practice and exercise lah. Practice exercise is to make sure that we provide a active learner participant lah during the instruction process. Okay, next instrument is NRT, or we call it as norm reference test. It is a test where we want to compare a student performance in a norm group lah, in a normal group. That means someone that the performance is average and almost similar lah. And then here the characteristic of using this instrument, it is focus on relative standing lah. That mean all the learner have average performance. And then often use a summative assessment. For example, here standardized test and also IQ test lah. Okay. Okay, usually for NRT, the score, okay, we will follow the bell graph curve lah. Usually bell graph curve is he want to see the norm of the norm performance of the student lah, where student normally get the score lah. For example, here around 85 until 115 is the norm output of student lah in SAT and also GRE. SAT and GRE is a IQ test to test the student performance in English. Okay. Okay, and usually when we are using NRT, it will align with the objective, activity and also the assessment given lah. For example, here the objective is, what do I want student to know how to do when they leave this course? The objective, when they are settle the instructional process, what the output they get lah. For example, they understand, to ensure student understanding and grammar. So when they leave course, they will know about grammar lah. Okay, and then for the activity, what kind of activity in and out of class with reinforcement my learning objective and prepare the student for the assessment lah. For example, here we do activity, reading activity. Read activity. So the student need to read, follow a good grammar lah. That the one of the activity that we do in our instructional. And then assessment. Okay, the assessment is the test lah. The test we give to them. Okay, what kind of task will reveal whether student have achieved the learning objective I have identified. Okay, for example, the test we given for test grammar is the oral test lah. Oral test. So we see if the student can speak clearly by using a good grammar. Okay, this is a process, the step that when we are using NRT, the step that we need to follow lah. They are around 1, 2, 3, 4 tests. Okay, the first test is identify the learning objective. Okay, for learning objective, I think it's already clear during your learning objective topic, how to create the objective. And then second step, select appropriate assessment method lah. That means from the test, okay, this is a list of assessment that you can use for NLT lah. For example, MCQ for knowledge and comprehensive, true and false for basic understanding, short answer, okay, it's a brief answer lah. And then essay question is more to assess the student cognitive. Hot is something that relate to cognitive, practical, and also I forgot already, later you can google lah what is hot. Okay, performance based assessment more on practical skill, and portfolio is collection of student work on a period of time lah. Okay, and then develop the assessment item. This is how you want to develop the assessment item lah. To develop this assessment item, you need to make sure that this 6 item is inside your assessment. For example, clarity and precision. That means the assessment given is clear, and then relevant to your objective that you already developed. Okay, and then you have your own threshold lah, what kind of score that they need to achieve. For example, like the bell graph, the norm, you need to see lah where is the norm part, where is the low and the high threshold lah. Okay, item difficulty is based on your learner target lah. You must balance between the easy, medium, and also the challenging item. Okay, item discrimination. Okay, you cannot have discrimination lah. The assessment we given should be in between high and also low, average lah, the average. Item bias. Okay, the assessment we develop should not be biased lah. We should avoid in culture or gender bias inside the assessment we develop. Okay, and then we do a pilot test. Okay, pilot test is a test we do first before we publish our assessment to other student. We will choose randomly 1 to 2 student or more to do some pilot test to see is our assessment is good for the student lah. Okay, for example here they already tell you gather a feedback from the student instruction. This is why we do the pilot test first. We want to gather the feedback lah. Okay, and then you want to analyze the item, the assessment, revise the question inside the assessment. Okay, do some retest if required, and then finalize the assessment lah. This is why we do the pilot test. Okay, this is for NRT. Okay, this is the number of assessment item need to determine the mastery lah. Okay, the first one, based on your objective lah, the complexity of your objective. If the objective you develop is complex, that means more item is required lah to determine the student mastery on your work. Okay, for example here, I give example for math lah. Math question. Math question, our objective is to make sure the student understand on basic calculation. Okay, basic calculation, that means they already learn, that they just need to learn the additional, subtraction, multiply, and divide. But for advanced calculation, we need to have a test from the basic calculation until the advanced performance lah. Okay, that is the how we set the number of assessment item. Okay, and then the desired level of precision lah. That means the high precision we want the student to achieve, more item we need to add lah. That mean if we want to for example we have 100 for example here we have a test question with 15 mark, and 100 mark. For 50 mark, the probability of student to fail is higher lah, because the question is have a many distribution of mark. But for 100 mark, the probability for the student to get to success in the class is more higher lah, because the distribution of the mark is very low lah. Okay, time constraint. Okay, time constraint based on the time lah. When you how many, for example 2 hour, how many question you need to do, 1 hour, how many questions, something like that lah. Okay, assessment format. Okay, assessment format also you need to see lah. If multiple choice, how many question you need to do. For essay, how many question you need to do. For example, like we compare multiplication and essay. If multiplication, we can give around 40 question for 1 hour. But for essay, only 1 question for 1 hour lah. Something like that. Okay, general guideline for determine the number of item. Okay, this is the example that I already tell you lah. For my MCQ, typically around 5 to 10 item can provide a reliably measured of mastery lah. Okay, and usually for MCQ, they want to test the lower level of cognitive objective. Okay, short answer and essay question, fewer item may be need lah, not much, because we don't have much time. Okay, and then the performance based assessment, usually we give in a project based lah. Okay, and usually it is to achieve a complex objective. Okay, additional consideration for design effectiveness of assessment lah. This is the additional consideration that we need to add when we design the assessment. First, it should be aligned with the learning objective, of course. Okay, use a variety assessment method. The assessment method should be reliability, the validate of the accuracy of the assessment. Okay, avoid bias. Okay, practicality, considering time. Okay, for practical assessment, you need to consider the time, resource and logically constraint lah. And then lastly, the type of student. Okay, this is the summary of today class. Okay, for instructional design, of course, it should follow the systematic approach to design and deliver the instructional. Okay, and then of course several theory need to apply, and then what kind of model we use. Okay, and then okay, this is what I already teach you lah in early class. Okay, and this one also will affect the measure instrument lah when you want to develop the assessment. I think that's all for today. Okay, thank you. Anything you can ask me during the class session lah. Thank you.